Live.
Yes, we are live. Go ahead.
I can't remember if we said this last time. I'm not sure we're allowed to say that. I think it's trademarked by Bruce Buffer. You might sue us.
All right, we are on. So, welcome. And today we are talking about decision making, isn't it?
Yeah, decision making, in particular, decision making units. So it's a little bit more
DMUs.
DMU, yeah, a little bit more sales specific, but I am going to relate it back to kind of everyday life as well. So
awesome. So I look forward to
yeah.
So let's see how we can bring that to life with our live stream. So Fred, over to you, and we are live. So go ahead.
Brilliant. No, it's great. I love doing these. This stuff for the AtPace Academy, it's just so cool that people who are hopefully early stage in their career, maybe just starting to think about what the next step is, leaving university. If you can take something from this and it's going to help you either into a career in sales, or take some of the sales skills, and the sales skills are life skills, and use those in your career, then I know Ravi and I are very much on the same page with this. We're pleased that you can do it. So yeah, this is where my bit to talk about sales. So I'm a professional sales trainer. It's what I do. Done it for 22 years. Been all around the world doing it. I calculated. Did I tell you this, Ravi? I calculated. I've been around the world 14 times. Stopping off in 36 different countries, like lots of them different times. And I worked with 10,000 salespeople. So this stuff, it's from experience, but it's also it's up to date. I make sure that the learning that I'm sharing with my clients is up to date, and that's exactly what we're going to be sharing here as well.
Awesome.
So just on the subject of learning, I know I always start off doing the same thing, but I also know we've got a different audience, and it could be the first time people are coming in.
Right.
So let me just alert people to the concept of 70-20-10, which is what we think about when we're helping people to learn. And by this, what we mean is that only about 10% of learning can we do in classroom, can we do in formal training, can we do in this kind of environment. Where the action really starts to happen is here in the 70% of applying stuff in real life. This 20% is about having a good role model. It's knowing what good looks like. It's getting feedback. If you can get that, feedback is so valuable. But this is all about trying to apply stuff that you hear. So if you're hearing things and you're having aha moments, which is, aha, yes, that makes sense to me. I can take that away and apply it. Make sure you've got a plan to apply it. Now, don't necessarily try to think about having huge life-changing aha moments. If you get those, fantastic. Let us know. But it could be that it's small things. And what we see is if we get lots of small things, they can start to add up. Aggregation of marginal gains is what professional sports outfits talk about. And that's what we do. Except it's a mouthful. So we are going to say that it's far easier to do 100 things 1% better than one thing 100% better. Now, whether they're small or large, the aha moments often mean that you have to step out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone, as the name implies, is where you spend most of the time because it's comfortable. It's where we know what we're doing and we're kind of happy with that. Though outside the comfort zone is where learning takes place. This is the stretch zone. So we need to make sure that we are stretching ourselves to move out of that to do a better job. So some of these things think, okay, it feels a bit uncomfortable to do it, but that's where it starts to make a difference. Okay, my job is to help people step out. I don't want them panicking. I don't want going outside a stretch zone into like pushing too far. But if you're not pushing, if you're not feeling a little bit uncomfortable, it's more likely you're not going to be learning. So just be thinking about that. Quick recap on last time. So the last live stream we spoke about building rapport, about personality styles, recognizing how other people think and what preferences they have. So if this is a very kind of more technical live stream, more technical salesy type live stream, the other one was totally stuff you can use in all walks of life. It really is thinking that people have got these different thinking preferences. And without going over the whole session again, what we identified is that the preferences people will have will be that they are more prone to thinking about things or more likely to be more of a doing kind person. That's one axis. On another axis, people have a focus on people, on relationships, and on another, tasks. Now, depending on the combination of those preferences, we see different personality styles. We might see the amiable, the friendly style, the caring, sympathetic sort that's very trusting, very loyal, but a little bit risk averse. And we can see this and we adapt to it. We do things which are going to be most comfortable to the style the person has. We're the ones who change. If we can do that, it's clever, clever communication. On another axis, we might have people who are quite task focused and they're doers. They really get on with things immediately. They work fast. These are drivers. They're driven to achieve results. They want to get on with things. They talk in bullet points. They're very blunt. They're direct. It's a style. There's no good, there's no bad. It's just a preference. If we recognize them, we adapt to the style. We do stuff which works best for them. We get to the point, we don't mess around, we don't bore them. We might have people that we know and we work with who are analytical. So they're task focused, but they're more thoughtful. They love process, they love methodology. They love ways in which they can make sure that what they do is accurate. Accuracy is really important. So they really kind of think about stuff. Now, these guys, sometimes we get this paralysis by analysis type thing. So we need to move them forward a little bit. But if you recognize that this is somebody who needs data and needs facts and figures, that's what we have to deliver for them. And then we also have the people who are also people focused, but more outgoing, more extrovert, or more expressive. The expressives love to talk. They love to talk about themselves for a bit, and then they'll move to something else because they jump around in the things that they're talking about. Quite distractible. Yeah. But they love recognition, they love talking, and they will give lots and lots of information. But you've got to keep these people entertained. You've got to keep them amused. You've got to keep them on track sometimes. All these styles we can recognize and we can start to adapt to. So if you didn't see that session, this has started to whet your appetite, go and look at that. We go into a lot more detail of the why and the how of that. Today, though, I want to talk about decision-making units. So this is very deliberate use of language. DMU. I will talk probably now about the DMU. The important part of this is the U, which is unit. Because where we sometimes see people start to make mistakes when they're trying to get a decision made. So when a salesperson is selling to an organization, is that they focus on a decision maker, one individual, one person. Now, there might be somebody who has the ultimate yes or no, but increasingly, there are more and more people involved. Lots of different people have got lots of say, lots of influence. Sometimes the influence is quite strong. Sometimes the influence is quite weak. Sometimes they really like you. Sometimes they don't. When we start to work out who's who, somebody I know talks about the cast of characters. I thought that's quite cool. Yeah, the people involved, the unit that are coming together to make the decision. If you've ever done any American sales training, you might hear this referred to as the buying committee. Unofficial committees, like people are unofficially coming together. And we know that the best committee is made of 3 people when one of them is ill and the other doesn't turn up. So I'm being silly. But as soon as more people are involved in a decision, it becomes more difficult because people are bringing different needs and wants and things that they're trying to achieve. And that's the point of when we're trying to sell or when we want a decision to be made, we need to understand all the influences. Another way of describing this. So there's lots of different language that's apportioned to this. I'm going to use some very deliberate language in it. You might see it called slightly different things, but ultimately, though, the concept is the same. We've got to recognize that in a decision, lots of people are involved. Now, I work in the world of B2B complex sales. And so, yeah, there's lots of people potentially involved. We'll have fire, depending on what you're selling. But just think about it, as I'm talking about this, that this could take place in any circumstance. You might be a family, you might be from a large family. You decide to have a family holiday. Right, now there's lots of different people want to achieve different stuff from this. Now, where do the parents want to go? Maybe the mother and father have got different needs and wants. Children, they're all trying to achieve different things. The grandparents might be invited as well. There we go. I've already mentioned half a dozen or more people all want a different thing from holiday. That decision's going to be fun, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I can tell you that that is going to be really a challenge. So you're going to have everything on the plate, including starting from Disneyland to the beach and to hiking and events and museums, and everything's going to be on it. And it's going to be really hard to drive that decision. I can imagine that.
Oh, totally. And the kids, that they're involved as well, because they need to be satisfied. They're not paying for it. They don't make the decision, but if you don't get it right for them, it's not going to be a great holiday. I'm thinking when I was a kid, myself, my sister, we want different things. Which is different to my dad. He wants to sit and relax. My mum wants somewhere that speaks Spanish so that she could talk Spanish, native language. Grandparents want to see us for 2 weeks. We got it got really fun. So again, think of it like that, the complexity of a decision when we bring all these people together. So yes, it's about sales, but also as a young professional, you might be selling a concept, you might be selling a project. I was talking through this stuff with a friend of mine. He's an IT director. So he's not selling anything, he's buying actually. But he has to sell project concepts. And so we were going through this and he says, I'm actually going to use this technique. And there's some software as well that I sometimes use. And I was saying, hey, use this stuff because you will understand all these people across different countries who are all got some kind of different driver. You thought they'd be the same, they're not, to get the decision made. So we talk about mapping the decision-making unit. And what that boils down to, basically, if you've heard me before, I like to make things really, really basic. Mapping the decision-making unit involves plotting up who is who. And normally when we're thinking in an organization, the best way of doing this is just thinking about the organization chart. Take the section of the organization or take all the people potentially you think are involved and map it out. Who's who, levels of seniority, let's start to get their names. And there's some very deliberate information we're going to try to get for each of these. The point of the information that we're trying to get is to help us to think. It's to help us to think what we know. It's to help us identify what we don't know. I think it was Donald Rumsfeld who coined the famous phrase, the known unknowns. The stuff that we know we don't know, but that's good because we can start to try to find it out. Known knowns, okay, we know this stuff. So yeah, we're really trying to be very deliberate in the information we've got because it helps us as the person that's driving the decision, selling the decision, to do a better job. So for each of these individuals, I'm going to recommend that we get minimum 6 pieces of information. Now, the great thing about this way of thinking is that if you want to take it forward and add other bits of information that you think will be useful, go for it. The more information you've got, the better, really. And as you understand sales more, there are other things we would try to understand about people. But I'll give you the basic model here. In about 10 minutes time, when I finished explaining it, you might think, Fred, that's not basic. For me, it is pretty basic that if we're not getting this information, we're not in a good position to do our job, which is to help the decision be made. So what are we going to understand? Okay, let's think about it like this. the first piece of information that we want to get is somebody's name. Okay, that's easy. The sweetest and most important thing in sound in any language is somebody's name. So make sure we know the name, make sure we know how to say it. It's important to people, so we need to understand who that is. And then we understand their job or their title, if you like, their position. Again, reasonably easy. If you're doing this from a commercial point of view, if it's not your own company with a decision, if you're looking at a customer, LinkedIn is your friend on this because many people will have their name, their job, their title. And I'll actually give some other clues away on LinkedIn as well. So we start to think about that. Then we start to get a lot more deliberate in the way in which we start to think about the information that we've got. So here, we're now going to think about the role that they play. Think about this as the role they play in the decision being made. So this is what this very specific piece of information is about. And we're going to use deliberate tags. We're going to put deliberate labels against people to make us think, and it's to make us think what they are thinking. So the first role that I want you to think about is, are there users? Are there people, if we're selling a product or service, that are actually using what it is you sell? So think in the IT world, and we might be selling a computer program, some software, IT, some hardware even. It's the people who are going to be actually hands-on. Because if it's not right for them, if they find it uncomfortable, if they don't like it, this is going to have an impact, not just on the decision, but on the success of what it is you're deploying. So again, if we're thinking of that holiday example, it could be, who are the people actually going on holiday? They're going to be there. Imagine 2 weeks somewhere you don't want to be, all the activities aren't for you, everyone else is happy, you're not. That has an impact. So again, we're thinking about the users who are there. We're then going to start to think about buyers who have a criteria. So there's more deliberate criteria that they're trying to fulfill. And there's two ways we can look at this. They could be commercial criteria. So this could be where people have certain budgets, where they need certain timeframes fulfilled. There might be certain conditions, terms and conditions, the deliveries, these kind of elements that if we don't fulfill these from a commercial aspect, then it's not good for them. So we need to recognize that there are people who will be looking at this stuff. Again, another criteria type buyer here is people who have technical criteria. Again, if I roll with the IT example, we talk speeds and feeds. And so it's people who have it's got to do a certain job. It's got to lift a certain weight. It's got to work at a certain speed. It's got to do a certain thing. If it doesn't, it's no good to me in my job. I can't vote for it. I'm not going to support the decision. Technically, it doesn't work. So bigger, more complex decisions, we start to see different people. We might have procurement people involved, commercial criteria. They have finance people, commercial criteria. We might have engineering, technical criteria. So there's people we start to recognize. And when we're thinking what it is they're looking for, we can start to make sure that, yes, we're doing what you need it to. The majority of the people we look at as we start to map up this decision-making unit will fall into these categories. Now, I'm going to introduce another piece of language here, and this is that we look for an economic buyer. The economic buyer is the person that's got your economic success in their hands. Some people will say to me, is that the decision maker? I'll say, right, we're trying to take the language of a decision maker out because it is the unit that we're looking for. So that's why it's been deliberately shifted to become the economic buyer, the one that's saying yay or nay. A naive salesperson looks for them, puts all their time and effort into them. But what could be happening is the person is saying, hey, look, I just signed the check. I write the PO. All my people have to be happy with this for me to do it because I don't want to get the kickback if it's not right. So only focusing on one person who you think is the most senior, the decision maker, that's naive selling. It's not good enough anymore.
And I think a lot of people make that mistake. They come to the point where it's the PO needs to be released, and suddenly everything just goes into a big, cycle, because you've actually not engaged with the economic buyer right up front. You really don't understand their drivers. You don't understand their metrics. You don't understand what they are being measured by and what are they looking for. All this while you've been trying to work with the big honcho, whoever that is in your mind, right? So you've
you're
completely
thinking,
ignored this.
I'm going senior, I'm going big. They'll sign it all off. Well, no. The people I employ, their thinking is the people I employ to do their jobs need to be satisfied with the solution you're giving them to help them do the job. And if you're not talking to them and covering them, which your competitors might, you're missing out, because it's just an easy decision. They say, hey, boss, we want this. We're all happy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy then. We see it so often. We also see people who assign the wrong role to people. They think they're talking to the economic buyer because people are either very deliberately pretending to be, or they think they are and they don't even realize how their own company buys. So it's about being very questioning and pushing back sometimes, and really trying to make sure we've got the structure right here.
Yeah. One question which I wanted to ask is, a lot of people don't tend to understand the difference between seeking the right information and putting the person in an uncomfortable position. For example, I have been at the receiving end of salespeople who have asked me the question, can you make the decision? What they're trying to ascertain.
Decision maker,
are you the decision maker? And I think that has been very off-putting. So how do you recommend that people actually ask the question?
So the subtlety in the language, it's the language pattern. Yeah. How do you make this decision? Who else might we need to involve? Who would it be useful to show this stuff to? It's that kind of question. So it's an open question for a start. I'm not trying to push you down the route. Is it you?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Why? Because it's an easy answer. Or because I don't really want to say no. It's a bit embarrassing. It's, great. Who else do we need to impress with this? It's that kind of thing. And without going into the whole opening a whole can of worms of the type of sell I talk about, but I'm very much about collaborative selling. We want to sit alongside our customers. We work together on this. If I'm saying to you, Ravi, I want to actually sit next to you, not across the table, and I want to make sure that you're looking good and that we are collaborating, we're co-creating, we're doing stuff together to get the best outcomes for you, which should be the best outcomes for me as well. Because if you're happy, I'm happy. I'm going to be open about the fact, we're commercial, we are going to be selling it to you, and you need to realize that.
Right.
And this whole, I don't know, the ethos of how we need to operate is very much like that. But just, if I throw all this stuff at you, are you going to say yes to me? That doesn't work anymore. The last role here helps us with that. And that's the coach. So it's you look for somebody, you try to see, is there somebody that's going to coach you through this whole process? Now, it could be one of these people who you've already identified. It could be somebody completely different. There's somebody who's saying, oh yeah, this person's really important. By the way, make sure you talk to them. It might not appear that they're key, but they are. People rate their opinion very, very highly. Don't go and talk to that guy on a Friday. He's a nightmare. He's always grumpy. Don't know why. Maybe he doesn't like weekends. Yeah, that person knows grumpy on Mondays. They love their weekends. They're always tired. Whatever information they're giving you, it's really useful. They just help you. They'll sit down, they can map the chart, they can work you through it. Very, very useful. And so they will help you with understanding that who's who. Have they told you they're a decision maker? Okay, right. Yeah, they would do. They're not. Really? Oh, no. They love to pretend, but really it gets signed off at a higher level. And that person, actually, they're a really good guy. The first thing they will do is say, is everybody happy with this proposal? Oh, valuable, valuable information. So we try and find who our coach is super quick. So they're just some basic ways of thinking. Who are the people? And what I will say when I'm coaching this, when I'm working with people in real life deals, is how many people do you know? To be honest, I don't really listen to the answer because I'm immediately going to say, well, it's not enough. Whatever the number, 12, well, it should be more. 14, still more. And there is some research that says actually that the average numbers have increased from, say, 5.4 don't know what 5.4 means, but anyway, to 8, to 11, and it's probably going up to 12, 13 now. But it's basically, there would probably be more people than you think. Challenge yourself to find out. So then what we can do is we can start to think about, I've talked about this word already. So what influence do they have? Or where is their influence? So this is all about trying to work out, do they like us or dislike us? Are they for or against? Yeah, would they support or detract? So you can use different language, but basically it's saying, are they on side, are they off side? And I like it. I like this sliding scale. On a scale of 1 to 10, would they be saying, yeah, we think what Fred's saying is great, he's really cool, buy from them, they're superb? Or 1 is, don't go there. No. Yeah, so we're trying to work out, and it's sliding because it can change. And our job is to change it. If it's 10, let's keep it, but if it's lower, we need to try to influence them. Actually, look, support. So we can make a little kind of number here. And this is useful because you might not know. Remember, this is making you think. All this kind of decision-making unit stuff, it's live, it's ongoing, it's keeping you on your toes to work out the best way to operate. So what we can also do then is say, well, in that case, how strong is their influence? So if somebody's saying, well, they're rubbish, but actually nobody really listens to them, it's not too bad. If somebody's saying, oh no, they're rubbish, but they're a key player, now we have a trouble. So again, we can score that with a number. I can score it with a number out of 10. So I might put that here and say that's 7. So I'd look at that the one piece of information, and that actually is pretty good because that's saying that person is strong. So 7 out of 10 is quite good. And they're about 7 there as well. 7, they're not bad. Okay, there's worse. There's 1 and 10. Hate you, but very, very powerful. Yeah. Might be people who love you, but it's a low thing. It's just trying to work out what's going on in their head. How is the organization set up? Again, I keep repeating that, but that's what this stuff is. What else is useful to get? So we've talked about this. I started off talking about it. The personality styles. Again, we've got a quick model that we can use and say, yeah, this person, they are amiable. Yeah, they are a driver. The good thing about this is that we are going to be talking to them, and it just gives a quick reference to, okay, so if I'm presenting stuff back to them, how do I do it? How do I just adapt the sales message when I'm talking to them? Yeah. And then finally, well, maybe last but not least, it's WIFM. I don't think I've talked about WIFM yet, or maybe I did in the very first thing. So WIFM stands for what's in it for me. That's what they're thinking. They won't voice it. People don't say it like this, but that's what's going on in somebody's minds. Yeah, you might want to call it what's their win. Yeah, what is it they're trying to achieve? Yeah,
I think that's a much better representation because what's in it for me has different connotations in different cultures. So I think what's their win? What are they really looking to achieve?
Win's the best way. See, I first, in my very, very first training session, when I was learning how to sell, it was positioned as WIIFM, which looks a little bit like a radio station, doesn't it? WIIFM, something like that anyway. And you have to tune in. You have to tune into the radio station. You've got to be on their wavelength to get that message across. That's the kind of thing. But yeah, probably the more grown-up language is what's their win, which can be business and personal. So from a business point of view, what are they trying to achieve? What's their KPI? What are they in the job to do? Because if they can do that, again, it's going to look good. So they might be trying to reduce the cost by 10%. It might be able to increase the output. They need to gain market share. It's those kind of things that they're employed for. The personal thing, it could be that they're ambitious. This will help them get promotion. It could be they're lazy. It makes their job easier. It's hassle-free. Yeah. So we're trying to think on all of these different levels. There's a whole module, we might do this on emotional logic in how it's working sales, but most stuff, and people always argue with this, they'll go, no, I'm an accountant, I sell accountancy software, it's the most logical sale ever, it's all logic. It's like, no, it's driven by emotion. Don't care what you say, it's driven by emotion. and we can break down as to how. But that's why it's important to understand the personal side of things. So we start to fill all that information in for all the people that are involved. Easy. We have all that information at our fingertips.
So now what?
Well, we don't. And that's the point. Remember, I said it's about known unknowns. You're saying, I know this, but actually I don't know really exactly what they're trying to get out of this. I'm not sure. Fantastic. Guess what your next job is? To find out what they're trying to achieve. I know this stuff because I've been talked through. I've never met the person, so I don't really know their personality. Talk to them, find out, read the clues. So what we do is we can start to set up a way of alerting ourselves to the fact that we don't know. I make a big deal of it. It jumps out to me on the I put this into a spreadsheet quite often, or I use a piece of software. But again, it makes it very, very obvious when you don't know what it is. And it's good. Celebrate it. It's a challenge. We all like a challenge. Your challenge is to go and find that information out. So as a sales manager, if somebody's just starting on an account, they'll have a map with lots and lots of challenges all over the place. Yeah, red flag, things that are just saying, I don't know, don't know, don't know. We want to then just look at that, and is it progressing and that people are finding more information? Now, it could be that the more you find out, the more you realize you don't know. So there's more red, but actually some of the pieces of information have started to be completed. When we start to get this information, it really puts us in a strong position to be thinking about the decisions we're making. So like I say, I'm explaining it from very much a B2B sales background. That's where we use it, or where it's from. My mate, the IT director, he's doing this now, pushing through a global IT project. He's got to sell the concepts to people. Could just get the big boss to say, no, you're all doing it. But that isn't going to be as effective as him understanding them, what's driving them, how they are, how on side they are. Maybe they love it already. Maybe it's going to be harder work. This is what he's going to do. And to some way, shape or form, other decisions in personal life. Not quite as regimented. You might have a bunch of friends deciding what to do at the weekend. Oh, here we go. Want to do this, want to do that, want to do the other. Oh, everyone's trying to achieve something different. Okay, who's got the stronger influence? Yeah, who's on side with my idea? Who's not said anything? Watch the quiet ones. But yeah, okay, I'm being silly, but you can recognize when you start to know and you're very deliberate about thinking about the information and how people are weighing this up, we can do a far better job. And then what we do as a result of it changes how we make our proposal, changes how we make the pitch, changes our sales argument, maybe changes what we're trying to propose even. So that's why I do get quite excited about this. I'm trying to contain my, people think you're sad, Fred, you get sad about mapping up. No, I think it's great because I have lost count of the number of training sessions where people, I say, like, pick your biggest account. Oh, I don't need to do it, Fred. Don't need to do it. I know them. It's my biggest account. I'm with them all the time. No, don't need to do it. Don't need to do it. Don't need to do it. I said, oh, come on, look, we've got a load of time. Humor me and start to map it out. And then I wait. And I know that pretty much every session, I'm going to get the same thing. I'll suddenly hear her, and excuse me, but I'm quoting, bloody hell. Oh, yeah. And it's usually the person that's complained the most. I've realized I don't know enough about this. Bingo. Job is done. They've had this frightening moment that their account that's making up a large percentage of their revenue, of where their success is going to be, is actually quite a fragile relationship because they have one or two relationships within there, but they just do not know enough people. And being the helpful person I am, I then say, God, imagine if we're doing the competitors are doing this next door and they know 17, 18 people. No, but seriously, it's about having people get that knowledge and that realization that knowledge is power, information is power. That's what this is all about.
Awesome. So I think one of the things that I wanted to check with you, and one that's the question that's come up, is a lot of people try and spend a fair bit of time on decision making, and we've gone through this a few different times. In which live stream coming up are you going to talk more about how are you going to take this to closure?
So when you mean decision making, can you just define that?
Right. So we've just looked at the DMU, right? So I know that, decision-making unit. Now, the part of the decision-making unit analysis is to be able to figure out who needs to be involved at what point in time to be able to close the sale, right?
Yeah.
So how do we take the information that we have now into the next live stream where you're trying to apply that? So could you talk a little bit about what's coming up next?
Sure. So you always put me on the spot. I can never remember what the next live stream is because we're circling through the UCL.
That's true. Yeah.
So this is understanding. This is about understanding the customer. Yeah. The next will be more about capability, stroke credibility, and how you position yourself better. And the next one would be the likability, the relationship stuff. Yeah. As we bring it back into the U bit, which is more, it's more technical normally. What I can do, I can't remember the stuff that we've scoped out, but we can easily, because it's in the next three. We can put one in as to how people can start to use a sales framework to move themselves through a sale, but aligning with customers. This is very, very different to the kind of training people might have had, might still be having, and certainly that I had when I first started. We talked about the sales process. That was it. That's what you did need to know. That's the sales process. Bop, 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 bop. That's what we do. Go on, take people through the sales process. Like you're doing it to them. That is old-fashioned thinking now. We need to be thinking, what is their buying process? How are they going through stuff? And so how can we align what we're doing so it's relevant to the activity? So that's the process that I've designed, the value framework, VALUE, where it's, again, very deliberate, that we might have to lead people, we might have to take them by the hand and step them through. Or we might go, hey, these are quite competent buyers. They understand how to do this. I play a slightly different role in helping them along that. So modern sales is getting more complex because we're having to make the decision as to, am I kind of like the guide, or am I kind of like the teacher? There's slightly different things, but the framework remains the same. And I'll take people through that.
And I think that's the big piece around selling that's the difference between a good salesperson and a pushy one. Is a person who can read the room and understand the process better and adapt themselves to it, rather than somebody who's just got a template. You remember those people who call you trying to sell you a credit card? Now, you don't want to be one of those, especially in a complex sale. And that's what a lot of people make mistakes on. So I think the decision-making unit is a good way to analyze people and process. And that's really what you've brought us through today. So I think it's very useful.
It is, because certainly we can go in more detail. When we start to get to the win, and when we start to understand them and whether they support this stuff down here and putting those numbers in, you don't put the number in just for the sake of it. You genuinely think. And the stuff that will start to come out with is that, hey, Ravi's quite an expert buyer. He understands this stuff. He's bought loads and loads of sales training. He's heard stuff. He's researched stuff. If I try to take him back too far, you're going to get annoyed. Fred, I don't need this. Whereas it could be, Fred, I'm new in this role. I've been told I've got to get some sales training. Help me. Of course I will, because this is what I do day in, day out. So you're almost making that decision, and people are somewhere in between that. Or it could be some people very confident in it, some people aren't. Now, some people are very confident in it, but actually they're working on older information. They're not up to speed. Now, these are going to have to be challenged. Now, that's an interesting conversation as well. So the value framework just helps us work out who's the right people to work with, how can we do a bit of prep for it, how do we manage the conversation, and then how can we pitch it and move it forward. So I can take us through that broad framework at a very high level, which is it's a sales framework, which will help people start to understand that.
Excellent. So thank you for the decision-making unit live stream. Fred, I look forward to catching up with you again in a couple of weeks, where we will bring people through the competence layer of the UCL framework. And for those of you who are interested in the course, just reach out to us at AtPace, where we are putting together the material behind it. So you also have the possibility to look at it asynchronously. Awesome. Fred, any closing comments before we close off the live stream?
No, that was it. I was going to say, you took the best bit, which is to say, hey, join us in the academy. No, seriously, that's where we are. We'll support, we'll talk about this stuff, we'll help people to apply it in real life. But that's kind of what we do. Yeah. Let me go back to ahas. What was your aha moment? Think of your biggest aha, or maybe there's a whole bunch in this one. Maybe it was one of the bigger. Well, no, it's quite a lot. Think of what it is. If you want to reach out, put it into the academy. Say what it is. Say what you're going to do about it. Bit of accountability will make it more likely you're going to do it. But certainly, look, we're here to help. So please use that.
Awesome. All right. So thank you, Fred. Catch you in a couple of weeks on the next one.
Look forward to it.